You were trained to hit the hardest target in the room, and that's exactly why you keep missing the easiest one. Somewhere in your mind, there's a trigger finger. It was built for exams, for interviews, for arguments you had to win before anyone else even finished their sentence. It was built to find the flaw in every simple answer because in your world, simple answers were always suspicious. Simple meant lazy. Simple meant everyone else. Simple meant you hadn't looked hard enough yet. So when a plan for your money shows up looking too calm, too boring, too undefended, something in you pulls the trigger anyway, not out of malice, out of habit. This is what smart people rarely say out loud. The sharper the mind, the more often it fires on its own side. Think about what happens on a real battlefield when identification fails. A soldier sees movement in the fog. There's no time to confirm, no time to double-check the silhouette. The training says shoot first, ask later, and sometimes what gets hit isn't the enemy at all, it's the unit that was supposed to be protected. Command has a name for it: friendly fire. It's not weakness, it's not incompetence, it's almost always the opposite. It happens to the fastest reflexes, the sharpest shooters, the ones trained to never hesitate, because speed without verification is still just aim in the dark. Your financial decisions are moving through that same fog every single week. Every plain, patient, boring strategy that could actually grow your money walks straight into the crosshairs of a mind that was never trained to hold fire. Here's the part that should sit uncomfortably with you. Every month you spend hunting for the smarter move, the account that should be compounding quietly in the background sits one decision behind where it would already be. That gap doesn't stay flat. It doesn't pause and wait for you to feel ready. It multiplies silently on a curve that has never once cared how many books you've read or how many spreadsheets you've built. Right now, tonight, while you're watching this, that curve is already running. With you or without you, it doesn't check in. It doesn't ask permission. It just compounds, indifferent to whether you're on board or still circling the entry point, still looking for the flaw that isn't there. You didn't build this reflex out of nowhere. Go back far enough and you'll find its root, the same wiring that once kept your ancestors alive by treating anything unfamiliar in the tall grass as a threat worth striking first, before it struck them. That circuit never retired when the danger changed shape. It just found new grass to search through: spreadsheets, index funds, a savings plan simple enough that a teenager could run it without supervision. And your inner sentry looks at that simplicity and reads it as a trap, because in its ancient, unedited logic, nothing that lowers your guard could possibly be safe. Ease has always meant exposure, and exposure to that old system has always meant fire first. So you keep reaching for complexity, mistaking it for control. You call it due diligence. You call it being thorough. But watch how the pattern actually escalates once you strip the language away. First, it's hesitation, the account that should have been opened last year, still sitting in a folder labeled under research. Then it's substitution, swapping the plain, proven strategy for a louder one because loud feels like doing something, and doing nothing has always felt, to a mind like yours, like the real failure. Then comes the full engagement, timing entries, chasing signals, rebuilding the entire plan every time the market so much as exhales in a different direction. Each stage looks like diligence from the outside. Each stage is actually the trigger finger tightening a little more. And then comes the moment that reorganizes everything you thought you understood about your own intelligence. The instrument that has quietly built more ordinary fortunes than any strategy in financial history isn't clever. It isn't complicated, it's repetition left alone, undisturbed for a long time. That's the entire weapon. Compounding doesn't reward the person who outthinks it. It has no interest in your analysis. It rewards the account nobody interrupts. Which means the very trait you've been using as a weapon, the refusal to leave anything unexamined, has been aimed this whole time at the one position you were supposed to be defending. You weren't outsmarted by the market, you were outlasted by your own reflex. Now the fog gets heavier, not lighter, because here's the trap hiding inside the trap. Once you suspect your own instincts might be the real threat, the mind that prizes control doesn't relax, it escalates. More research. More second guessing, more rounds fired at the same quiet position because standing down feels, to that mind, like surrender rather than strategy. This is the part where most people freeze completely. They see the pattern laid out in front of them, feel the weight of it settle in their chest, and still do nothing, because recognizing the friendly fire doesn't automatically make the hand release the trigger. But here's what changes everything, and it's smaller than you'd expect, smaller than any strategy you've been searching for. A trained shooter doesn't lose the instinct that made them dangerous in the first place. They install a discipline in front of it, one rule that has to clear before the finger is allowed to move. Confirm the target before you engage. That's the entire doctrine that separates elite units from tragedy, and it translates directly into how you handle money. Applied here, it looks like this. Before you touch a financial decision, ask one question and answer it without flinching. Is this boring because it's already proven and already working? Or is this new because it's genuinely better, or new simply because it's louder? If the plan is already doing its job quietly, the rule is simple. Hold fire, let it run. Your intelligence isn't banished from the process, it gets reassigned. Instead of hunting the plan for hidden flaws, it now stands guard over your patience, protecting the compounding curve from the one shooter who's hit it before. You. This is the shift that actually builds wealth for people like you, not a new strategy, not a hidden formula buried in some course, but a mind finally aimed at the right target. The moment you stop treating simplicity as the enemy, you feel something unfamiliar settle in. Control that doesn't require constant firing. Certainty that doesn't need to be re-earned every single week. That's not surrender. That's precision, finally pointed in the right direction for the first time in a long time. And once you see it here, you won't be able to unsee it anywhere else. Because the same trigger finger that's been firing on your money has almost certainly been firing somewhere else too, on relationships that were simple enough to trust, on opportunities that were plain enough to just work, on versions of your own life that didn't need to be complicated in order to be right. The fog doesn't lift because you got smarter. It lifts the moment you finally stop shooting at your own side.